we're going to spend the next 75 minutes talking about marketing. You'll notice I said we are not going to spend the next 75 minutes talking about advertising. Advertising is this very, very narrow component of marketing that gets a bad reputation. Why does advertising get a bad reputation in dentistry? Why do you think? Is it expensive? Yes, it's very expensive. Most of the time we do it incorrectly, so we end up wasting gobs of money. More importantly, there are some big corporations out there that have a much bigger budget than we do, right? Can we compete with that? Probably not. If you knew what the advertising and marketing budget was for some of these corporate practices, it's probably more than your practice produces in a year. Kind of would blow your mind. So, that being said, full disclosure, everybody take out your phone. Okay? You do not need to take pictures of any of the slides. The contrast on this is terrible. It's very hard to get a good picture. I will send you the whole talk. Okay? So pick your method of communication. Find Instagram, find Twitter, find email. Pick up the phone and call. I will send you the whole talk. Fair enough? Every single slide, every single statistic, every single source. As a math professor, I learned if you try to write down or take pictures of everything I'm talking about, do you know what you're going to learn? Not a gosh darn thing. Okay? So, everybody got all our contacts? You feel free to live tweet the lecture if you so desire. Okay? Not on Snapchat or Periscope, but away we go. All right, I know you all were at the masquerade party last night. How was it? Okay, everybody have a good time? Okay, I was not there because of this picture. That is my husband. What jersey is he wearing? The Cleveland Indians. I'm sitting behind him. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So you cannot see that I am wearing a Cubs jersey. Okay? This is at Coors Field. Who plays at Coors Field? The Rockies, National League team, which means we were there to watch the Rockies play the Cubs. Can you see where we're sitting? 3 rows behind the Cubs dugout. What does my husband wear to the game? And it's on ESPN. And my sisters call me, hey, I see your idiot husband behind the dugout in his Indians jersey. Okay? So this week is kind of interesting in our house, which is probably why I'm here and not home. But I went upstairs last night to watch the game, and what happened? First World Series game in Wrigley Field since 1945, and the Indians win. Okay? Now, to be fair, my husband is a good winner. He did not call and gloat, but Game 4 is tonight, and I will be home, and we will go Cubs go, right? Okay? So, we're at Coors Field this summer visiting my parents who live in Denver at this game, and about the 3rd inning, this happens. Can you see what's happening there? We don't do these kind of ridiculous things at Wrigley Field. We have real fans, okay, but here at Coors Field, we have to do things to excite the fans. Who's having a race? Can you see in that? There's a toothbrush, an extracted tooth with a very stylish hat, okay, and a tube of toothpaste. This is called the tooth trot. They come out and they have a race kind of around the outside of the field, and it tries to get everybody excited, okay? The first time my parents went to a Rockies game, they had recently moved from Northern California to Denver. My mom texts me, oh my gosh, you'd never believe there's a running tooth across the field. And she says, then next, I'm looking for a new dentist. Should I go to this practice? Who do you think's sponsoring this? Is it Dr. John Smith? Who is it? Comfort Dental. And what do I tell my mother? No, that is absolutely not where you want to go. Okay? How many of you have the budget to sponsor the tooth trot? Anybody? Okay. Does that kind of marketing work? Well, certainly it got my mom's attention, right? And I said, no, that's not where you want to go. Okay? Later, I went online and kind of found out, we were there late at that game, but I found out that Comfort does something way, way smarter than the stupid tooth trot. Comfort allows kids to sign up and go out at every position, left field, center field, right field, first base, second base, third base, shortstop, and they have a ball, and the Rockies come out, and the player signs that ball and gives it to that kid. That's why my mom thought Comfort Dental was good. It has nothing to do with the tooth trot, okay? Most of you don't have a Major League Baseball team in your backyard. Most of you don't have the budget to do something like that. But should you absolutely be using, for most of you, the better part of your marketing budget to make a noticeable impression on your community? Yes. Okay? And that's not really advertising, that's just great marketing. Okay? So, we're going to debunk some marketing myths today. Okay? The first myth is that you can actually market to women. How many of you have been to a course before and somebody stood up and said, "Oh, women are our target market"? Everybody's hand in the room should go up. Okay? Do they say that? Yes. And how do they say we should market to women? Frou-frou, Dr. Roy says. Okay? I remember when everybody was doing paraffin hand dips and we were getting massages and it was the latest thing to support. Now, believe you me, this is not a bad charity, but everybody kind of jumped on. It's October. What cancer awareness month is this? Breast cancer. So everybody in October started doing breast cancer awareness things. That's not a bad thing. That's just not how you market to women. Okay? In fact, marketing to women is a complete myth. Okay? The notion that you can market to women is completely false. Why? Because there's no one descriptor for every single woman that I can hand you. Go, Chris, if you'd like to double your female patients with the $20,000 treatment plans, or if you'd like to increase case acceptance by 85%, here's the woman you should be targeting. Any more than all of the women who are sitting in this room are exactly the same. Okay? The article goes on to say, everyone has demands on their time. Any woman in this room, raise your hand if you feel like you have too much free time in your life. Okay? I know all of you are sitting here right now kind of coming back from your peanuts and everything and going, okay, it's Saturday, I'm going to get out of here at 12:30, I got to get home, I got to do this, I got to do... Right? You've already got your to-do list for the rest of the weekend, don't you? Okay? Do you do that at work? Sure. Your patients are doing the exact same thing. And then what we tell people is, oh no, I'm so sorry, we can't schedule the whole family the same day because what if you all cancel? That is terribly inconvenient. What would you do if your healthcare provider said that to you? Okay? When we think about marketing to women, we have to consider that everybody has their unique profile. Okay? Being able to look at your patient base and say they're all the same is like being able to look at your staff and go, oh, well, if we do this one thing, everybody's going to be happy. Does that happen? No. Okay? Even though we're all not necessarily juggling children and work, for many products and services, gender doesn't even come into it. Okay? There are some people, there's a lot of studies that say female patients like female practitioners. I've been able to find an equal number of studies that say female patients prefer male practitioners. So sometimes what we learn with statistics are, it depends who reports on the statistics. Okay? You actually need to go deeper to find out what motivates your target market. What motivates your patients to show up, say yes, and send other people like them? Let's say that again. What motivates your patients to show up? What's the second thing? Say yes and send other people like them. Okay? Issues such as age, circumstances, and pocket are far more important. Where are all my front desk team members yesterday who were in Dr. Roy's classes? He shared the story of the man who came into his practice that he prejudged as a very young practitioner, thinking there's no way he's going to be able to do this extensive treatment plan. And what happened, Dr. Roy? He said, do you accept cash? And okay, and it was because his granddaughter, who he had raised, was getting married. The circumstances drive that more than anything else. Okay? And that's true with all of your patients: age, circumstances, and pocket. We are very foolish if we think that people are not going to ask how much things cost. Okay? We're kind of living in this fantasy world if we think, oh, the perfect patient is never going to say, Doc, how much are these 3 implants? They're going to ask. We just have to be able to answer that question, right? Just because they ask doesn't mean they're unwilling to invest. Everybody got that? Just because they ask doesn't mean they're unwilling to invest. Okay? When you think about what makes up each and every patient in your practice, each and every female patient in your practice, we care about the women because the women control the what? The money, right? It used to be she spent his money, then she spent our money, now she spends my money. The psychology of how we spend that is different, and that's a whole different lecture. But if you look, can you see all these things up here on the screen? Those are all things that are probably some component of something I like or something that's a core part of things I'm involved in this year. Okay? Those of you who are fans of the SEC are not pretty crazy about this eye of the tiger right there on the field, but that's okay. I will admit to you that I'm an LSU fan. Okay? I like the big green egg. We have a huge big green egg at home. My husband and I love to cook. Now, if you assume that I only like barbecue, you're false, because that's Lydia Bastianich, and she makes great what kind of food? Guess with a name like Bastianich. Italian, okay? And the National Park Service. And would you guess that I'm a card-carrying member of the NRA? Does that make me not a woman? Okay. I also support our national park system. Those two are different line items in our federal budget. Okay. There's all these different things that go into your patient makeup, just like there's all these different things that go into you individually. Okay? So Harvard did a study, and you're not going to be able to see any of it. Okay? But when you look at your slides, when you get back, it's one of the most comprehensive studies in trying to understand market segmentation. Okay? So it breaks down women on this magical grid, which you can't see, that looks at how much money they have available and how much time, okay, as well as marital status. So you have divorced women all the way up here at the top who have tons of money and they're in their own category, okay? How many of you have patients like that in the practice? Divorced women who are sitting on multi-million-dollar trust funds from their divorce. Anybody got any of those? Some of you are going, yep. Some of you are going, no, not in our town, not even close. We don't have any of those in the county, let alone the state, okay? And then when you go kind of all the way to the bottom, we see women who make less than $40,000 a year. Traditionally know that people who make less than that don't go to the dentist on a regular basis, okay? And they're single and they're kind of in the making ends meet category. So take some time as you go back to your practice, look at this slide and try to figure out, if you can, maybe the couple of different market segmentations that your practice does involve. Okay? And then think about what are the demands on their time and their money. There are 2 forms of currency, guys: time and money. Which one is sometimes more important? Time. Okay? We spend all this energy and investment learning how to talk to people about money. We don't spend nearly as much the time that we should on verbal skills, getting people to understand that we're trying to communicate. It's important, Mrs. Jones, that you set aside 3 hours of your day to come over for this procedure. What's the last thing, every woman in the room, that you set 3 hours aside for other than this conference? My hair. When I walked out of that appointment, how did I feel? Amazing! Does every patient walking out of the dental appointment feel as amazing as they do after a new haircut? No. So what else have you spent 3 hours on? Anything? What? Shopping. Okay. End of my shopping trip, how do I feel? Depends on if I look at my credit card bill now or later. Okay. What else? A date. I could get lucky. This could be the best 3 hours of my time. All right? What else? You set aside 3 hours for your kids? You go to a school program, everyone's like, oh, I'm enjoying that my kids aren't here. Please do not mention my children. Okay? I got real lucky. I married and got an amazing stepdaughter and stepson. My stepson just joined the Marines. I mean, I won the stepchildren lottery. Okay? But there are times where I want to, okay? For example, the other day, he comes screaming in the door. Here comes Jake. Jake is the only 17-year-old you know, by the way, who owns 2 cars. Okay? He earns all his money. He buys a truck, and because that's his man car, then he's got to go out and get a 1988 Fox body Mustang. Anybody know what that is? POS 1000 is what it is. Okay? He comes screaming in the door. Hey, Kay, I'm going to go sell my Xbox because I need $500 for some new car parts. Okay? Have his interests changed? Yes. Do your kids' interests change? Suzanne's got kids who are doing the rubber band thing. Okay? When you set aside 3 hours of time for your kids, what happens? You feel super excited at the end of the 3 hours? Well, that was the most amazing 6th grade band concert I've ever been to. Okay? No, sometimes you set aside that time and there's not that sense of renewal. The goal is for you to get patients to set aside their time. And they may not leave feeling like they just went shopping or they just got their hair done. You want them to feel renewed. Because when we set aside time, we either feel like it sucked us or it renewed us. If the clinical dentistry cannot renew them at that appointment, what can renew them? The relationship, the conversations, okay? And so that being said, when we think about how we talk to patients, when we think about what we put on our websites, when we think about the photography we use, when we think about communicating with each and every person that comes into the practice, this is something I want you to think about.
Like most women in commercials, I love to start each day doing yoga in my underwear.
Or journaling in my journaling nook.
And eating a wholesome, farm-fresh breakfast with a tiny spoon that I bought from a company that gives tiny spoons to underprivileged children.
Huh. According to science, most professional women don't have time for any of that.
Not that we need research to prove it, but there's research to prove it.
57% of us are up before the sun is up. 21% of us check our work email before even getting out of bed.
What?
Let's go get that morning meeting.
9% of women cite dry shampoo as one of the greatest inventions of the 20th century.
I'm done.
33% of us never make our bed. Like, ever.
21% of us have used an article of clothing to camouflage a stain. Very nice.
Only 16% of women would describe their morning with the hashtag blessed. And that seems kind of high.
58% of women will swear at someone or something this morning. Oh,
You know what 100% of us do have time for?
A real-life Pinterest board?
Fermenting your own small batch kombucha?
Propose? No, an organic breakfast in a bottle.
That's why we created Organic Balance.
Propose.
A nutritious organic breakfast with 16 grams of protein and half the day's calcium, so you can seize the cray. Find out what real women's mornings are really like at realmorningreport.com.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Why? Because it's so true. It's completely real. So if you don't have time to read the entire Harvard study, go back and look at everything you do to communicate with patients in your office and say, is it real? Is it transparent? Or are we trying to promote the services we offer with pictures that aren't ours and language that isn't ours? Do we have policies in our office that don't necessarily translate into the real culture of our practice? Okay? All of my younger sisters and sister-in-laws are pregnant or have had babies in the last 12 months. It's a very, very exciting time in our family. Okay? My sister that's right below me is a little later in life and has always suffered from migraines. So like many of you who suffer from migraines, what happens when you get pregnant? They get worse, right? So she has her son, and sure enough, she's been going to the same dentist in San Diego. Are there a lot of dentists in San Diego? Yeah, like a zillion. Okay? She's been going to the same dentist in San Diego for a number of years. She referred her husband there. Now, my sister has virgin teeth and healthy gums, has been going to the dentist since she was 6 months. But her husband, on the other hand, is from upstate New York, and apparently they don't teach people how to brush their teeth there. Okay? So he has a ton of work to be done, and he's in the process of doing that over the course of probably 3 or 4 years. Okay? Michelle's son is born. 4 weeks after, she has a scheduled appointment for her cleaning. She is religious about being there for her cleaning. Because what happens too when you're pregnant to your gums? Yeah, and she's like, listen, I just need to go in and feel renewed. Okay, so she has a migraine that morning, and her husband calls to do what, Suzanne? Cancel. Okay? And what does our office policy say about canceling the morning of? No, 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 no. And what do you think the person who answers the phone says? No, she says, are you sure she can't make it? Now, this is a great language if it's flaky Frank, who has missed 5 of his last 6 appointments in 12 months. When someone calls and you're looking in the record, right, if you're using Weave or whatever it is, and you look in the record and here's somebody who's been a patient for 12 years, they've never missed an appointment, you should be smart enough to know that they just had a baby because you should have sent them a what? Onesie that says future patient of Dr. Chris Mahan on it when the baby was born. If you didn't do that, you're a bonehead, okay? And what should the person have said? First thing we teach in customer service, I'm so sorry. I hope she's okay. I understand. Some kind of empathetic statement, right? I know there's a policy, guys, that says we don't let patients cancel. Whether it's 72 hours or 48 hours or 24, I know that policy exists. Sometimes what we forget to do is remember that it's real. So her husband, who is non-confrontational, says, no, she really can't make it, and I don't have her schedule in front of me, so she'll have to call you back to reschedule. And the woman says, okay. Then Pete goes upstairs to tell Michelle, hell hath no fury like a woman with a migraine who just had a baby. She immediately gets on her phone and does what? Sends an email to the doctor, whose email she has, because he's a great guy, and says, I thought you should know this is what happened. Okay? I'm sure there are plenty of patients who wouldn't say something. I'm going to say something. If it was up to my husband, we'd leave the practice tomorrow. He thinks this kind of behavior is unacceptable. So there's a difference between this is the way it should be and real sometimes, right? And that doesn't teach us that policies are not a good idea. It just teaches that when you're at this level of practice like you guys are here on a Saturday in this room, you've got to connect with each patient individually to retain them, to get them to show up, say yes, and bring others with them, okay? And yes, I did go buy the Organic Valley Breakfast Shake, and it is delicious, okay? And even Jake the Marine drinks it, all right? And we're dead. Okay? There's a funny thing about photography in dentistry. You've heard me mention this. This is a very, very funny Facebook page you guys can follow. It's called It's Like They Know Us. It makes fun of marketers who are absolutely terrible. What does that ad look like? What catalog does that ad look like it came from? Pottery Barn, right? How many of you got the Pottery Barn Christmas catalog already? Good night. That thing is like 500 pages. And you sit there flipping through it. Quilt throw, $275, right? Stockings, $97. You're going, I can go get these at Target for $7.99, okay? But we sit there and flip through it, right? And again, you might not be able to read this, but It's Like They Know Us kind of comments and says, Dear Mother, we thank you for gathering us around this fire, which we absolutely will not touch or push each other into. We look forward to roasting marshmallows away from the furry rugs, fuzzy boots, and low-hanging decorations, just begging to become kindling in what insurance adjusters will become to know as literally the stupidest thing we have ever seen. Okay? And so it is not that hard in an image-based business. Are we in an image-based business? Are we in an elective business? Yes. to create images that look real and aren't fake and stand out. If you got out your phone and just started Googling all the other dentists in your town or your county, you would find that most of them use, I know because we create them, these same 50 photos over and over and over again. Why do we do that? Because we're lazy. Because we don't want to set aside the time to have a photographer come out to the practice. Okay? The new Galaxy Note 7, now no longer on the market because it spontaneously catches on fire, right? Had a great camera. Galaxy's new product has a fantastic camera. How many of you have an iPhone 6 or an iPhone 7? You're walking around with a camera in your pocket that is better than most professional photographers had 15 years ago. You can take your own photos if you want. Hiring a professional photographer to come over is also a lot easier. How many of you have used Thumbtack? You know what Thumbtack is? Thumbtack will let you find a photographer in your area and say, hey, we want you to come take our patient photos. If you're in a small town, who's the photographer you want to use? One that lives in your town, right? Probably your patient. Okay? Take exceptional photography. Okay? Healthcare continues to be a source of frustration for women. In fact, when you look at the same study from Harvard, they said 71% of women ages 30 to 49 are dissatisfied with their GPs, and 68% are dissatisfied with specialists. How many of you have patients, women ages 30 to 49? Every single person in this room should have their hand raised. Okay? Does it surprise you that 71% of them, let's round up, 3 out of 4 are dissatisfied with GP care? What are they upset about? What does it say? They are irritated by the amount of, it has nothing to do with cost. It's the amount of time you keep them waiting. Waiting to make an appointment, waiting to be seen, waiting in the chair. Okay? Waiting for the crown to come back from the lab. Disney is brilliant. If you want to learn about waiting, read anything about Disney and the principles of occupied waiting. Who's been to Disney World, Disneyland? Oh, let's stand in a line for 3 hours. Does it feel like 3 hours? No, because what do they have? They've got screens, and you're like, this is a ride in itself. Disney is brilliant at occupied waiting, and you can learn a lot from them in your practice. Throwing a TV in your op is not occupied waiting. Okay? Many of the consultants who've spoken before have talked about the importance of the 2-on-1 transfer. You never, never, never leave a patient alone. We do it all the time. It's terrible. Okay? People hate to wait, even 7 seconds. How many of you have listened to new patient phone calls and you put the patient on hold and you're super busy, right? So you think, oh, no time is passing. And then you listen to the phone call, patient's on hold for 90 seconds. It sounds like an eternity. Okay? It's important that you understand the bar in healthcare for service is so low, we don't have to be that exceptional to stand out. Okay? Now, the recent changes to the Affordable Health Care Act, also known as Obamacare in the United States, have not done us any great favors in dentistry. Why? People think that what? We used to think it was bad with insurance. Now people think if I need it, it's covered. Okay? And what has actually happened in dentistry? That coverage has actually been inverted, right? Okay? Fred Joyle's got a great video on the difference between dental insurance and medical insurance. It's 90 seconds. You should go watch it. Make sure your team watches it. It's the greatest way to explain to patients how medical insurance and dental insurance are different, and they just go, oh, I get it. Okay? Go watch it. Fred Joyle, okay? The 1-800-Dentist guy, he was here last year. Future Dentics, okay? They did a study, 2016. What influences, patient, your decision when choosing a dentist? And the number one factor in 2016 was, can you read all the way over to the left? Accepts my insurance. Does that mean if you don't take insurance, your practice is doomed? No. It just means you're going to have to work a little harder to explain how that works in your practice to people. Again, people ask about insurance and money, guys, because they don't know what else to ask about. They don't call and say, hi, I heard Dr. Shelburne is using the exceptional composite material he just saw at the Nashville Dental Show. I'd like to talk about that filling he did on number 17 and maybe the mesial portion of my... Nobody says that, right? They call and say, do you take my insurance? And the funny thing is, if you are an in-network provider, then what magically happens? The patient schedules, right? Unless you're absolutely horrible on the phone. And then when they come in, that's a whole different story, right? Because we have to tell them, oh, by the way, your insurance actually isn't going to cover most of what you need. Okay? That conversation just gets moved a little bit further down the cycle. All right? After accepts my insurance, what's number 2? What's the real estate rule? Location, location, location. Location used to be number 1. It's now flipped. What's number 3? Can you read that? It's like, where's my loops? Customer ratings and reviews. Should you get regular reviews? Yes. Are they easy to get? How many people vote? This is like Survivor. You have to vote or I'm kicking you off the island. How many people think reviews are easy to get? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many think they're hard to get? Okay. Why are they hard to get? Takes time. Okay. From a website visibility standpoint, you should all take out your phone right now and Google your practice name or your doctor's name. Let's do that right now. Everybody take out your mobile device and Google your practice name or your doctor's name. Hopefully the first thing you don't see is an ad for someone else's practice. But that does happen. Okay, what do you got? Our website is the first one. And see, you have a smartphone. If you have your doctor's contact information stored in your phone is going to be smart enough to give you your own contact results before the web results. Anybody got that? Okay, your website's the first one. What's after your website? Some of you have a Facebook page. Some of you have a Yelp page. What else is there? Dentalinsurance.com. What? Okay, first homework assignment. You're going to go back and fix your photography so your practice shows real women. Second homework assignment is you've got to make sure that everything on the first page is what you want to be there. There shouldn't be anything other than information about you, your website, your health grade page, your Facebook page, your Yelp page, your Twitter page, a press release on what you just did from Dentistry from the Heart. All of you guys are now stuck in your phone. Okay, now put your phone down. You're like, oh, look at these 3 Instagram comments I got. Hey, put it back down. Hey. A lot of companies now have simplified the review process. I know you've got Solution Reach, I know you've got Demand Force, I know you've got Lighthouse, we send a survey, it integrates the review feeds. There's a lot of companies now that offer the white label product that used to be coming from Bird Eye. Okay, My Social Practice is one of them, Reach Local's one of them. It literally is like the Uber for reviews. Anybody using it know what I'm talking about? Okay? My Social Practice, Reach Local. Okay? The company that invented the product is called Bird Eye. They just white label it to a bunch of other companies. You know what that means? They like sell it and then okay. Here's how it works. You text the patient a link that says, because it's pre-written, we'd love for you to review us. Click here. And the technology is smart enough to read what accounts the person already has. Google, Facebook, Yelp. How many of you have these apps installed on your phone? Nearly every person in this room has Facebook installed on their phone. And the link will take the patient directly there because they're already signed in. By default, it's going to take them to, what's the most important one? Google. If they don't have that account, it will take them to either Facebook or Yelp. Those are probably the 3 biggest places. Suzanne tells me yesterday, she tells her clients you need 10 new reviews a month. That's a very healthy velocity. Okay? If you get 100 new reviews in 2 days, what's going to happen? you're going to get penalized. There is such a, it's like the Goldilocks rule, too much, too little, just right. You're going to pay about $150 a month for the product. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Okay? They've made getting reviews a lot easier. What if somebody writes a bad one? Let's talk about it. You've got to decide on what you're going to do before that happens. Okay? If somebody writes a review directly on Google, guys, you can't take it down. If somebody writes one on Facebook, you can ban the user from your page. You've got a little more leverage there. If somebody writes a review on Yelp, that's going to be there until after you die. Okay? So, understand that insurance, location, and reviews, how many of those can you control? You're probably not going to move your practice tomorrow. You're probably not going to drastically change your insurance philosophy. What could you make a difference in tomorrow? Reviews. All right. And if you look, that same study talked about which of these things would make you switch. And you would think that big, giant 45% circle is doesn't take my insurance. It's actually not. Okay? That big circle is poor quality of work. Okay? I'm not going to leave because the insurance changes. I'm going to leave if you do bad work. All right. So, if you're trying to market not just to one woman, but to the collective individual personalities, remember you should enchant each and every patient. You should help her do more with less. We could have a whole lecture on the convenience of your office and scheduling and how can I schedule and do I have to talk to a person or can I do it online? Okay? Give her more. I have said almost at every single lecture this year that I have given, how many of you give a hygiene bag at the end of the hygiene appointment? Everybody? Okay. What's in that hygiene bag? Usually a toothbrush, okay, toothpaste, that little toothpaste, right? Little floss, okay? Anybody put a brochure or anything else in there? What? Chapstick? You can never have enough chapstick, guys. Okay? How many of you just give one? You ever give two? Hey, give one to a friend. Here's one for... When you give people two of something, do you know what the inference is? One is for me, and one is for me to share. This happens with referral programs and business cards all the time. If you just hand somebody one thing, they're going to keep that thing themselves. So you could give two. What else could you do? Well, geez, toothpaste is super expensive, so it's a good thing we're giving away those little tiny tubes. Woo! What would happen if you gave away a big tube? What do you think your patients would say? Oh my gosh, they would go back to their office or to daycare and go, you'd never believe Dr. Mahan gave me a big tube of toothpaste. How much did that cost you? Like 37 cents? Okay. What else could you do? We were kind of laughing that we were giving away an electric toothbrush. Could you give away 1 or 2 electric toothbrushes a month rather than just the regular toothbrush? Sure, that's something a little bit more. We were talking about hair appointments earlier, weren't we? Okay. When you go and get your hair cut, you know what my hairstylist does? When I'm checking out and writing the check for the ungodly sum of money that it just costs to cover my gray hair, and basically have a 3-hour gossip session with my stylist, right? What do they throw in the bag? A couple little samples. And I walk out of there going, ooh, I got something extra. What can you do to make your patients feel like they got something extra? This is where it's hard in dentistry because if you've got an exceptional practice, you've got to keep raising the bar. Sometimes it's really easy. If the new patient has moved down from New Jersey where they saw a practitioner who was in a 1,600 square foot facility and they had that window of death to check in, what? Okay. And they answer the phone, doctor's office, and then they come down here to the south, and y'all are so nice, they're going to go tell everybody because the service was so much different. But if you've got patients who've been coming to you for 10 years who are used to your exceptional practice, you're going to have to do something a little bit extra to get their attention. And what do people do when you give them a little bit extra? What's the first thing they do? They tell somebody. Guys, dentistry does not come up in conversation. Frank, I'd love to tell you about my root canal on number 19 today. Please pass the potatoes, and I'd love a nice Chateaubriand. It doesn't happen. Dentistry comes up in conversation when you do something that compels people to leave the practice and go tell somebody about you. Sometimes that's actual clinical work. Sometimes that clinical work is transformational. Sometimes it's something as little as giving somebody a big tube of toothpaste. You got a whole page of notes yet? Okay. Assume nothing. Stop assuming she's married. Stop assuming she has kids. Stop assuming she has the money. Stop assuming he has the money. Stop assuming she wants kids. Cultivate conversation with those patients. Okay? All those little extra things go. All right, so we figured out that women are all the same. We probably knew that coming into this meeting. The next myth we're going to debunk is that the online arena is going to solve all of your problems. Okay? How many of you have a website? Let's raise them high. Okay? Keep it there if it's less than a year old, refreshed in some way. Good. Okay? All right. Put them down. Okay? The main purpose for most of your practice websites is not to get new patients who know nothing about you to Google Best Dentist Nashville and find your practice. Everybody understand? The main purpose for most of your practice websites is to support your word of mouth strategy. Meaning, in 1975, when Mrs. Jones told me to go see Dr. Rasner, I might have driven by Dr. Rasner's office to go, okay, is that the guy? And then I called to make an appointment. In 2016, when somebody tells me to go see Dr. Rasner, what is the absolute first thing that I do? I Google him. Okay? And that's why I had you Google yourself. Okay? You should know what your practice word of mouth factor is. Okay? Chris told you I'm kind of a math nerd, so we are going to do some math. Okay? You've got to know how many active patients you have. You've got to know how many you got from patient referrals in the last year, and then you divide. All right, so I've got 1,000 active patients. I've got 100 new patients that came from patient referrals last year. What's 100 divided by 1,000? What percent is that? That's 10%, which means 10% of my active patients are referring somebody. Is that good? Remember, Suzanne said body language is 93% of communication. Some of you are like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I don't think that's great. Hey, most of us in dentistry naturally are going to get about a 10% word of mouth just because of the nature of our profession. Practices that really excel at word of mouth get it closer to 20 or even 25%. Okay? So go figure out what your word of mouth factor is. And for many of you, that's probably enough new patients for you to keep you busy and happy. So everything you do needs to support your word of mouth, your community involvement, your web presence, your reviews. Some of you are going to look at that word of mouth factor and it's going to be 2%. And you're going to go, how in the world are only 2% of our patients referring people? It might be what Suzanne talked about yesterday, that somebody's got to wait 4 weeks for an appointment, so there's no way they're referring somebody because that means they are going to have to wait longer. Okay? You've got to know what your word of mouth factor is. Okay? You flew here from Texas? Yeah. All right. Anybody fly here from further away than Suzanne? This was what your seat looked like, right?
Oh, exactly.
Okay. I'm flying Southwest this afternoon. You think my seat looks like this? No, it looks like this. Okay? What's the difference? Money, right? Like a lot or a little? A lot. Okay, so who's in this part of your practice and who's in that part of your practice? Most people go in, they start to go through their patient records, they find that Pareto principle applies. 20% of the patients generate 80% of the revenue. 20% of the patients generate 80% of the referrals. You've got to know who those people are. Your first-class cabin deserves service like this. That doesn't mean that everybody in Coach, we're not giving them anything. It just means they get a little more. Okay? Is their patient appreciation event a little bit more? Do you send them more stuff? Do they get more thank yous? Do you do something a little bit different for people in your first class cabin? It's not always the guys who accepted the most treatment. I have a client who their first class cabin is based on how long you've been a patient in the practice. They have an anniversary party every year. If you've been a patient for more than 20 years, you get invited to this party. How cool is that? It has nothing to do with the dentistry. It's, hey, we want to thank you for being a part of our family for 20 years. How many of you have been in practice for more than 20 years? Ever have a party like that? Let's have one. Okay? We are going to do some math. Is this how you feel about math? If you're going to invest in marketing, you need to do a little bit of math. Like I said, most of you are going to go back to your practices. You're going to look at word of mouth as the largest driver of new patient flow. The next thing I want you to look at is, what did you spend on all that stuff? What did you spend on the big toothpaste and the chapsticks and the events and the thank you cards and the balloons you sent to everybody for their birthday, or the big giant check that you got printed that says patient of the month, and the whole team comes out and kind of, who won the award over here? Who won the prize? Did you see the reaction when you won the prize? What happened? Can you guys do that again? Do it again. Okay. What would happen if on the first patient of the day, how many of you have patients 7 o'clock? We're all real fired up at 7 o'clock, aren't we? Because we were there at 6:30 for the huddle and scrambling and brushing our own teeth, right? What would happen if at 6:59 you lined up and opened the door, and here comes Mrs. Jones, and you guys, ready? Can you imagine? And maybe we have her run through the gauntlet, and there's balloons and confetti and all these things. You guys are going, this Kristi Nation is crazy, okay? But that kind of stuff is a marketing investment, okay? I'm not talking about writing checks for TV ads and radio ads. Listen, guys, that stuff works if you do it right. It's expensive, and if you need it, if you can't get enough patients from word of mouth and from the internet, then yeah, we use advertising, but most of you don't have to do that, okay? So in order for you to really figure out what you need to do, you should know these things, okay? You should know the top 5 places you get new patients. I know some of you who work at the front are anal like me, and you've got every new patient source, and when we load the annual report, there are literally 275 referral sources. Okay? Just give me the 5 big ones. For most of you, what's the number 1? And what's number 2? Patients and internet. Okay? Sometimes it's patients and insurance company. Okay? Number 3, what could be number 3? Maybe some kind of advertising if you had it. If you don't have any advertising, what could be number 3? Some kind of community-based activity. The Little League billboard. That's not advertising, guys. That's community involvement. Okay? Yeah, maybe a local business that you take bagels to every other Thursday. They know Dr. Jones is rolling in with 3 dozen bagels and cream cheese, and we don't have to worry about it. And if you're really that lazy, just go to the bagel shop and tell the bagel guy, hey, listen, everybody who comes in, here's $200. When it runs out, it runs out. Here's a stack of our brochures. Just give them this and say, the bagels this morning are on Dr. Johnson. You don't even have to be there. That is the best $200 you spent on marketing all week, and you didn't have to do anything but spend 3 minutes with the bagel guy, who's probably a patient of yours already in your town. Okay? What's an average new patient worth? You should know that. How do you figure that out? New patient production divided by number of new patients, average new patient value in the first year. If an average new patient in your practice is worth $1,000, you probably shouldn't be spending $3,000 on patient appreciation gifts. If an average new patient in your practice is worth $10,000, you might be able to invest more to acquire them. Every practice is different, okay? You should know your first class cabin, and you should know what you spent. Okay? I'm in the business, and I can't tell you the number of times when people send me a list of their marketing expenses, and it is literally, okay, postcards. I think we spent $14,000, question mark. Solution reach. I think we spend $249 a month. I don't know. Check with me. That's how they keep track of their marketing investments. When people get a P&L, sometimes it's not allocated correctly, okay? Sometimes it's in the wrong category. So we don't really know what we're spending on marketing. All the different events that Dr. Rasner showed yesterday, his senior day and all these different things, I count that as marketing, okay? You really have to know what you spend, okay? This practice spends a lot. What do they spend a lot on? Print, okay? Advertising, like we said, is the most expensive, all right? SEO, what is that? Search engine optimization. We're going to talk about that in a minute, okay? PPC, what's that? Pay-per-click, okay? Yellow Pages, does that still work? You sure? I've got a client in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, 7 locations. Spends a lot of money on the Yellow Pages. It's generating more than $1 million in revenue every year. In some markets, the Yellow Pages still works. You just have to know in yours if it does or not. If your practice is in Manhattan, the Yellow Pages probably doesn't work, okay? Some rural markets, the Yellow Pages work very, very well. Email marketing, radio, internal marketing, and community involvement. All right, so is this enough information for us to make a decision? What would be the next thing we would need? Oh, I probably need to know how many new patients I got from each of those things. But that really, guys, is the worst form of ROI measurement. The number of new patients is not the best way to measure success. The amount of production that comes from those patients is much more indicative of whether or not the tactic is working. More importantly, how much I had to spend against the amount of production. Okay, so now I'm getting into, here's another math word, ratio. You remember what a ratio is? Okay, let me see if I get this. So in this particular practice, on 758 new patients, see that green line right there? An average new patient was worth $1,989. You remember, they spent $112,000 in overall marketing. So I know an average new patient is costing them, let's round up, about 150 bucks, and it's worth about 2,000. So that means for every dollar they're spending, $13.38 is coming back in production. Everybody follow that? That's pretty easy math. That's just division, okay? And the challenge is that sometimes people will go to a course and they'll say, yeah, the Yellow Pages don't work, they're really dumb, you should get rid of that. Or your colleague will come to you and say, your email marketing program's too expensive, you should use this one, and that's how we'll make the decision. In this particular practice, okay, when we look at return on investment, there are certain standards that we look for, but in this particular practice, for every dollar they're spending on the internet, they're getting $6.13 to come back. What's the first problem here? That's lower than their average. That's not good. How much are they getting back on? That's cut off. That's the mailing. Their flyers and mailings, for every dollar they're spending, they're getting 9 back. So see, typically we'd say advertising has a much lower return on investment. And you should put all your money in the internet because it's way better. What's true in this practice? It's actually the opposite. Now, when we pull out just the newspaper, what's happening with the newspaper? For every dollar I'm spending, how much is coming back? $2.62. Well, this is not hard. Which one is the worst one right now? The newspaper, okay? So when you think about that, there are some standards that we typically look at. All right? There's only 3 kinds of marketing. The first is interruption. You probably call that advertising. Radio, TV, print, we typically look for every dollar I spend, I need it 3 to come back. How much were they getting back from the newspaper? Less than 3. So what should we do? You're their chief marketing officer. What's the first recommendation you're going to make? Get rid of that newspaper. Now, somebody may come along and say, well, maybe we just need to change the ad. Somebody may come along and say, well, where is the ad in the publication? Is it on the front page, or is it in the obituary section? Listen, I have a client who swore to me that his newspaper ad was successful because he had a quarter page for implants in the obit section on Sunday. And you're kind of going, okay, I'm kind of seeing that that might work. Let me make a note, obit section, all right? Every practice is different, okay? Permission marketing, the internet, social media, okay? We look for 1 to 10. And then marketing with meaning, internal marketing, community involvement, where the marketing itself actually enhances the life of the patient, 1 to 20. Now, what's this note over here on conversion? Because see, the patients we get from advertising are never as good as the patients we get from word of mouth. So traditionally, when I look at a patient that comes from TV, it's not only that my ROI is going to be lower, it's 10 people are going to call. How many are going to schedule? 5. And of those 5, how many are going to say yes? 2.5. So you start to look at the conversion as it filters down. What's the best way to get patients? Marketing with meaning, right? Okay? It absolutely works the best. All right. So we got about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to jump to the myth I really want to talk about. Does social media work? My husband's an accountant. Chris knows that his favorite answer is, it depends. And he does our taxes, okay? So can social media work in your practice? Yes. Is it going to generate 100 new patients a month? Probably not. What is social media by definition? Word of mouth, online. That's all it is. If you think about it that way, it's going to change what you do with social media, okay? You can go to plenty of classes on social media. I'm here to tell you that one thing that's going to make a difference is start using, so a word that starts with V, video. When you log into your Facebook page, what do you see a lot of now? Videos. And even when the video's on silent, do you watch it? Yeah, because people have gotten smart, and what do? They put the text right on the bottom of the video because they know you're there at the dental office where you're not supposed to be on your phone watching the video. 8 billion videos a day. Not just cat videos, okay? Inspirational videos, dental videos, all types of things, okay? The algorithm has changed so many times. We know that patients look at stuff they like. They generally look at stuff they like from their friends and family, not from you. Your whole idea should be to generate content that people want to share. Okay? If it's not share-worthy, don't create it. Is everything you create going to go viral? No. Okay? Not at all. Okay? How many of you have Instagram? Who's got Instagram? All right, the account you want to follow on Instagram is Dr. Patricia London. Okay? Who's in charge of marketing in most offices? Look at the doctor, front office. Look at the front office. Doctor. Look at the assistant. The hygienist, not us. Okay? In most offices, it's usually somebody at the front. Sometimes the doctor, it's kind of like getting into the pool when the water's cold. The doctor might kind of like put his or her toes in a couple times and then step back when the schedule's full. And then the schedule's empty again and the doctor's back in the marketing plan, right? But for the most part, it's some combination of front office and maybe the doctor. At Dr. London's office, there's a particular assistant who gets it. And this is what she does with Instagram.
Sometimes you gotta go back to actually move forward.
Put your hands up in the air, put your hands up in the air. Take me back. Hit me with your best shot. Fire away. I got snakes with ADs on her belt. Please watch your step, 'cause I'm
Buddy the Elf, what's your favorite color?
You used to call me on my cell phone. Late night when you need my love. Call me on my cell phone.
I saw a mouth like that, it had a hook in it.
How hard is that? Tracy, the assistant, has really run with that. All the assistants in the audience are now like, oh, I got a new standard, right? Okay. In social media marketing, we typically look, and particularly in Facebook, people pride themselves on the number of likes. Really could care less about that. You got 100 likes, you got 30,000 likes. It's not my priority. Now, this particular practice is a pediatric practice. They have 2,000 likes. Okay? You can look on your Facebook page and see. I don't care about that. I care about a little statistic called engagement. Okay? What does engagement mean? Okay? Engagement means that if I create content worth sharing, and people click and like and share, then my reach grows exponentially, right? So the number of likes and comments and shares I get trumps the number of likes on my page. This particular practice has 2,000 likes, but the reach for their last week is over 11,000 people. That's not with any paid engagement, although guys, you start to spend $2 here, $5 there, $7 there. Some of those boosted posts can really do a lot, okay? You don't have to have a Tracy. In many cases, you can let your patients shine, okay? This is the last post we'll share and then we'll close. Our rock star patient of the day, way to go, Brendan, okay? We hope you have a great performance this weekend. Now, one point of order. When you shoot video, what direction do you hold your phone? Did they shoot it the right way? No, it really should be turned, okay? But here's Brendan, the rock star patient of the day, and this particular video had 766 views, okay? And you should know this song. This is Nashville.
I'm only one.
You know it?
Call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one call away.
Okay. Now watch Brendan.
I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman's got nothing on me. I'm only one call away.
Okay. Facebook actually allows you guys to see how many people view the video and how long they watch it. Like many of you, when you scroll through on your phone, how long is your attention span? Couple seconds, okay? So a video shouldn't be long, and when you look at Brendan's video, for the most part, about half of the people watch it with no sound, okay? And when you look at it, most of the people hang on for about 13 seconds of that 22-second video. And then they click ahead. Okay? Social media works when you use it as online word of mouth. Marketing to a single woman is an absolute myth. You shouldn't move all your marketing online. Your online strategy should support your word of mouth. If your word of mouth factor isn't high enough and you're not getting enough new patients from that, then let's go to work on that first, okay? If that's not doing enough, and guys, a new word of mouth strategy takes a year to 2 years to develop and grow. You're not gonna double your word of mouth overnight. So if you need patients tomorrow, that's where the internet and advertising will supplement that. At the end of the day, the most important thing you can do is make sure that every communication with a patient, verbal or nonverbal, written or electronic, is consistent with the core of your brand. You want each and every patient to leave your office and feel, what's the R word? Renewed. Okay? I'll ask you what I ask everybody. Did you learn at least one thing? All right. Thanks for having me.